If you're looking for a used graphics card for gaming and have a budget of up to $250, this $160 GPU is the only one to go for because it isn't any worse than cards that are sold for up to $100 more than this one. The 5700 XT released back in summer of 2019, and while it's nearly 5 years old, it is still capable of delivering RX 6600 XT, RTX 3060, heck even RX 7600 levels of performance, all of which cost much more new and used. The only main disadvantages of the 5700 XT compared to the 12GB RTX 3060 and the RX 7600 would be streaming performance, RT performance, and efficiency, though in rasterized gaming all of these cards mostly aren't that far away from each other. In fact, according to a few reviews online, I'd say the 5700 XT slots right between the 12GB RTX 3060 and the RX 7600. This card is based on the first generation RDNA architecture, has 8GB of GDDR6 memory, a 256-bit memory bus, and 2560 stream processors. One advantage this card has over the newer 6600 XT is the PCIe Gen 4 X16 interface, as opposed to only X8 that you're getting with the newer card, which makes the 5700 XT with a higher bandwidth a great choice for those of you who are still running a PCIe Gen 2 or in some cases even a Gen 3 system. For the system specs, we have a Ryzen 5 5600, a B350 PC Mate motherboard, 32GB of 3200 megatransfer memory, and a 700-watt power supply. As always, latest drivers were used at the time of testing, the power limit has been increased in MSI Afterburner, smart access memory has been enabled in the Adrenalin software, and the Windows power plan has been set to ultimate performance. Let's begin with the best results, and for our first game we have Apex Legends, which stays well above 140 frames using high settings, only dropping to about 100 FPS under intensive situations. Forza Horizon 5 runs really well using the Ultra preset. The frame rate rarely drops below 100. This is one of those games that really benefits from smart access memory, so if your system allows, make sure to turn it on. By the way, the 6600 XT's VRAM maxes out in this title using the same settings, which is not the case with the 5700 XT, so that's another win for our $160 GPU. Far Cry 6 also runs great on this card using the Ultra preset. The frame rate mostly hovers between 85 to 100 FPS. Also, as you can see by our GPU utilization, we're slightly CPU bound, so with a faster processor, the results would be slightly better. Battlefield 2042 is pretty playable using the high preset, though since this is a competitive title, you might want to lower the settings to medium since it can drop to low 80s depending on the map and the situation you're in.
I can help you! Clean hits, one down. We can't let them win.
one is ahead. We're more seconds than our enemy.
Well done. We have secured almost every sector.
The 5700 XT has no issues running Dying Light 2 either. The frame rate hovers between mid-70s to 90s for the most part, though like I mentioned in previous videos, anything below 80 frames in this game is extremely noticeable input lag wise, so if you want the game to be responsive, you might want to reduce a couple of settings. Warzone 2 is another game that runs really well on our 5700 XT using the balanced preset. Even in an intense fight, the frame rate rarely drops below 90s. We can also get CPU bound here in some areas, so a better CPU would definitely result in a higher frame rate. Next up we have Spider-Man Remastered, and using the highest possible preset we do see drops below 70s here and there, as well as some movement in the frame time, so I wouldn't go beyond the high preset for the best experience.
Young man, I will pull this car over right now! Hold fire! Let's see what Spider-Man can do!
God of War runs pretty good using the Ultra preset, and while the frame rate does drop to low 60s every once in a while, unlike Dying Light 2, I still found it to be perfectly playable and responsive.
My bow!
No! You are not ready! Stay back! What did you find?
Tracks. Not deer, though. I'll keep looking.
And for our final game we have Cyberpunk, where I thought I was using the high preset, but it turns out it was Ultra, because of which the frame rate does drop below 50s here and there, though I know for a fact that using the high preset, the frame rate stays well above 60s most of the time. Temps-wise, this Sapphire 5700 XT does a great job at keeping itself cool in a 23-degree room with the fan speed set to 65% in MSI Afterburner, and finally the power consumption with this setup barely exceeds 400 watts while playing Cyberpunk at 1080p Ultra settings, so a 550 watt power supply is the minimum you want to have here. My only complaint would be the idle consumption, which is a problem related to mid-range to high-end Radeon cards in general. If your monitor's refresh rate is higher than 120Hz, the memory clock of your AMD GPU goes all the way up for some reason. Now, I have a 1080p 165Hz monitor, and after switching between different refresh rates, I found out that setting it to 120Hz or lower reduces the memory clock and the idle power consumption drops to 70 watts, which is something to keep in mind. Just like the Ryzen 5 3600 that we revisited previously, the 5700 XT is currently the best price to performance card, and I don't see a point of buying anything else up until about $250, of course if you don't mind buying used and mostly care about raw performance. Now, the RTX 3060 will perform better with ray tracing. However, if you're going to get 20 FPS with the 5700 XT with ray tracing on in Cyberpunk, for example, with an RTX 3060 you're going to get maybe 10 FPS more. So with this budget, there is really no point of buying a card in hopes of being able to play games with ray tracing at a decent frame rate. Anyhow, while you might need to lower the settings in a few recently released titles with the 5700 XT, at this price I don't think we have the right to complain, and as we saw in today's video, you won't have any issues running 99% of titles out there, even with maxed out settings. Anyways, that's been it. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to have a look at other videos on my channel. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more content, and I'll see y'all in the next one.